Hi, crew. How are we doing? I hope you had a great weekend and are ready to start this week off strong. We are here to do some, ooh, don't love that. Hold on. We are here to do some public speaking. This is your week 9, which is kind of cuckoo crazy, which means you have what, 5 more weeks of this class? It feels so long, but it in the grand scheme of things, it's like, oh dang, that is truly not far away at all. So ready to get this speech, your third speech done, and then you have one more, which is crazy. But so thinking about what we talked about last week, we worked on our impromptu speaking, which I was very, very, very impressed with, considering number one, we've never worked on impromptu speaking in this class. And two, we were impromptu speaking with an organizational method that we are brand new to as well. So I thought everyone did very good, and the parts we were kind of maybe tripped on or weren't as strong on, I think were very common. Um, there's hardly, you know, these outliers. I think it was very common mistakes, specifically with the organizational pattern with speaking impromptu wise. But why that's important, like I talked about on Wednesday, not only is it important for your just to get better at impromptu speaking, but it's also great for your planned speaking, right? It's for those business proposals that you have to do or presentations. It's for literally your speeches in this class. It is so important because you have a plan, and sometimes that plan doesn't go as expected. Your environment changes, which throws you off. Someone sneezes, someone yells, someone walks in, someone knocks on the door while you're presenting. There's all these aspects. Literally, you're just nervous and you go blank. There's all these aspects that can affect your planned speaking, and that impromptu can kind of get into gear and kind of fill in the gaps until you get back on your feet and you're like, oh, okay, this is where I'm at. This is where I'm going. Okay, sick. So the more we practice the impromptu, the better we can get at recovering. And that's kind of my main goal with us working on it, which we'll most likely work on it again in the future. So just keep that in mind. But other than that, excellent job on our in-class challenge on Wednesday. So let's get into what today will look like. We'll go over lecture-wise persuasive strategies with its ethos, pathos, and logos. We will then go over common Monroe's motivated sequence mistakes / some tips, review, and then some assignments. So let's get into first our persuasive strategies. So we will go over these way deeper, way more extensively, even past ethos, pathos, and logos when we talk about persuade, like our persuasive speech, our last speech. But right now, these are the only ones that are really applicable that you'll really have to think about. So we're gonna briefly touch on these, then remember in the future, we'll touch on these again, but just more in depth. So again, these persuasive strategies we'll go over are the ethos, the pathos, and the logos. I'm hoping this is something you have heard before. Very ancient Greece, probably if anyone you would have heard this from, you probably would have heard it from your English teacher when writing a persuasive paper. But if this is your first time, welcome. Welcome to the ancient Greeks and how great they were with language and speaking and writing. Amazing show stopping. So with these aspects, I think these will be heavily used specifically in your attention step and your need step. So just taking that into consideration moving forward. So first, let's get into ethos. So ethos just means your credibility. So this is The audience perception of the speaker is influential in determining whether or not they will choose to accept your proposition. So why it's so important to seem credible. Not only do we want, because think about in our informative and our demo speech, we weren't persuading, we were just informing our audience how to do something. And credibility was important for that because you needed to show that you were knowledgeable enough for us to trust you, that you knew what you were talking about and that information was the truth and it was honest, and we can take that knowledge and move on and know that it's correct and true, right? With your persuasion, same thing. Credibility wise, if we don't deem our audience or our speaker credible, it it is so influential in determining whether or not we accept what you are trying to persuade us to do. You're not going to buy something from someone you don't trust. You would literally say there's two people that you know sell the same stuff, right? For example, it's so funny that this is the example I thought, right? So my friend Paige, she just became a insurance agent, right? And so if someone else that I didn't know came up to me, same company, well, Farm Bureau Insurance, came up to me and was like, "Hey, I would love to sell you insurance. Here's the things, blah, blah, blah." Because I don't know him, I don't know if he's trying to, because sometimes at the end of the day, some insurance people are just trying to make money, like oversell you or whatever. So I might deem him like not credible, so I'm not going to buy my insurance. Even if he's right in front of me, it would be easier to buy it from him than to call my friend Paige and be like, "Hey, gal, can we plan a time this week to da da da?" But because she's credible, I'm going to take her word for it. I'm going to, right, do her action, which is signing her as my insurance agent versus that other guy just because of credibility. Does that make sense of why it's so important? Um, and some examples of this, right? It's not just, and we've talked about this before, but it's not just like you're the most knowledgeable in the room, you've done the most research, but it's also dressing the part. This is, right, looking professional, or this is if you're selling me something with cooking, you are wearing a chef's coat. If you created your own business, this is a polo with the business's logo on it, right? You're dressing the part, having a clean and aesthetic looking visual aid. If your trifold or your PowerPoint is messy, like truly think about you're at a job fair, you're at a career fair, you're at one of those like, what am I thinking about? Like, oh, conventions. Like those conventions where it's just a bunch of people selling stuff. If their booth, if their information, whatever that looks like, their visual aid is looking wonky, you are not going to want to buy from them. It's going to feel off. Next is sounding knowledgeable, which we know, and also sounding confident and enthusiastic, right? You can sound knowledgeable, but if you're boring, if you sound scared, if you're looking at the floor, if there's no enthusiasm to what you're talking about, right, you're going to lose us credibility. So it's all these elements working together. It's not just I've done the research, I know what it's about. It's also about that first impression, right? You have 2 to 4 minutes to convince me you're credible. That's dressing the part, having a very clean, aesthetic looking visual aid / table, sounding knowledgeable, and sounding confident and enthusiastic. So that is ethos. Next is pathos. So pathos, whatever the girlies say. That is your emotions. And this is important because humans are constantly in an emotional state. And this is pathos is opposite of logic, but it actually can be much stronger. Again, because we're constantly in this emotional state. We are constantly choosing things based off our emotion. What we eat, what we decide to do. Do we lay in bed all day or do we go out and go on a mile run? These are emotional states, 100%. So some examples of these are verbal, nonverbal, and visually. So let's get into how can we use pathos for each one of these. So the first example, so when we think about verbal, this would look like I'm going to use the example of you want someone to stop smoking. So verbally, you would tell an emotional story about how you lost a family member to lung cancer. So it's the words that I'm saying, the story itself that's emotional, and trying to get the audience in an emotional place to then decide to stop smoking. Next is nonverbal. So this would be as I'm saying the story, my voice is shaking, or I'm yelling, or I'm crying while delivering that message. If someone delivers, I think we've talked about this, where it's not the words itself, it's how you say those words, right? We talked about that difference between oral versus written language, right? The written language itself, unless performed in a powerful emotional way, is not going to have the same experience, the same power, right? Um, so that would be your nonverbal. And lastly is visually. So that would be like having pictures of like lungs, like of someone who smokes lungs and someone who doesn't smoke. And so having these like super black, scarred up, tar full lungs and then a regular lung. That is very powerful visually to stir up that like, oh, like I don't want that to be me emotions. Even I thought about those like stop smoking commercials where they have the people that use, oh gosh, what is it called? It's like the thing where they have the hole in the throat, the trachea, whatever. So they use that, and that's like a visual, like we can see how this has affected them, right? We see that they've had to have a surgery. We see that they talk differently and they like have these scars and they have these struggles. Boom, visually. So think about in your own speech, right? How can I use pathos verbally, non-verbally, and visually within my speech? And lastly is logos. So that is our logic. So basically, it is the logical means to supporting an argument. So the question here is, does your support you use, this is your examples, your questions, your statistics, your stories, data, etc., align with what you are trying to argue? Is there a logical bridge between what you're saying and trying to argue? What you're trying to argue and the support you are using. Um, I think an example I use just is, oh, everyone feels this way, right? That's very general. If I'm making an argument and my reasoning is because everyone feels this way, that's not very logical, right? There's no true backing, there's no evidence. It's not true support. And logic will make a whole lot more sense when we go deeper into it for our persuasion. But for this speech, I just want you to think about, okay, with your need, you're creating a problem. So what are the problems you're bringing up? Oh my gosh, this is a perfect example. Remember in don't don't mean to trigger our man Drew, but remember the feeding frenzy. And he's trying to build that need, and he randomly says 20, I don't remember the thing, but 29% of women fishermen want an edge on in their fishing. And then just keeps going, right? His need, his data, his support did not align with the product itself slash what he was selling. Does that make sense? So he had like the feeding frenzy, which I think in his mind was this is for all people. This is for the everyday fishermen that just want to get better and do better in competitions and have an edge. But the data, the support that he used, he alienated women, and that wasn't a very logical bridge. Boom, perfect. So that would be our logos, our logic. So with these, we want our ethos, our pathos, our logos to all work in perfect harmony together. If you just use your emotions, yes, that's strong, it's the strongest one. But then there's audience members that are lacking the logos, like especially if you're a very logical person, like those people in life where it's like they don't move with emotion, they move with logic. That won't work for them. Same thing with credibility. You could say all day, like, I'm a credible person. Say it's like a doctor being like, this is what's good for you, and um this is what's good for you because I am a doctor and I have researched this, but you don't have the pathos, you don't have the logos. Someone who doesn't trust doctors might be like, that doesn't work for me. So, hitting on every single one of these persuasive strategies makes a very well-rounded argument, and you're able to touch on multiple people in your audience, and that message will spread and be a lot stronger. So, let's look at these. Let's see an example of these at play. Honestly, I think the funniest thing is I think one of these is misspelled, so um ignore that.
The situation profoundly changed, though, on August 21st, when Assad's government gassed to death over 1,000 people, including hundreds of children. The images from this massacre are sickening. Men, women, children lying in rows, killed by poison gas, others foaming at the mouth, gasping for breath. A father clutching his dead children, imploring them to get up and walk. If we fail to act, the Assad regime will see no reason to stop using chemical weapons. As the ban against these weapons erodes, other tyrants will have no reason to think twice about acquiring poison gas and using them. Over time, our troops would again face the prospect of chemical warfare on the battlefield. And it could be easier for terrorist organizations to obtain these weapons and to use them to attack civilians. If fighting spills beyond Syria's borders, these weapons could threaten allies like Turkey, Jordan, and Israel. And a failure to stand against the use of chemical weapons would weaken prohibitions against other weapons of mass destruction and embolden Assad's ally, Iran, which must decide whether to ignore international law by building a nuclear weapon or to take a more peaceful path. That's my judgment as Commander-in-Chief. But I'm also the president of the world's oldest constitutional democracy.
Okay. So, like we saw in here, right? They broke it down into each section. But we had first the pathos. He talks about murder. He talks about children being murdered. He talks about mothers and fathers having to see their children literally dead and the tragedy of that. He paints that picture so if you are a mother, if you are a father, if you've had children, you can see yourself in that position and you feel for them. So he builds that emotion through pathos that way. Then he touches on logos, right? And he talks about basically if we don't stop this, then this is going to happen. And then he kind of shows like, and then if this doesn't happen, then this is going to happen. And then he kind of shows this logical path of if we don't stop this, this is the effect of that. So he uses logic of cause and effect in that scenario. Then he touches on his ethos, which is as commander in chief and as president of the United States. So that is how Obama used pathos, logos, and ethos all within his speech, which helps being very well rounded. I think Barack Obama truly is one of, like, he just makes like some of the greatest speeches. I know, I'm pretty sure we watched one of his other speeches in this class or at least touched on them. But the way he speaks is literally the reason why he probably came to power because he is able to move not only one certain group of people, but he can move a lot of people in his speeches. So so that was our persuasive strategies, which again, we just briefly touched on. I just want you to think about using those in your attention, in your need, maybe in your action statement. And how can we use them to make this well-rounded argument that kind of touches on every single aspect of my audience and how they think? So let's now get into common Monroe's motivated sequence mistakes. And then we'll also get into some tips, advice, and we'll go over the template and touch on the rubric as well, because I believe I forgot to go through the rubric, which is super important because you guys know me. If it's on the rubric, and I'm very happy with this one. I will say my informative rubric was not happy with. It was the first one I've done where this rubric I've used multiple times, so I'm happy with it and I will be using it moving forward. So let's start with our first common mistake while using Monroe's motivated sequence, which is the attention and need step merging into one. So this happens, and I saw this a lot with our impromptu, is people will ask a question for their attention, and then they'll ask like one question in their need, and then just move on. So to me, even though you're like, these are separate, if your need is not built out fully, right? It's like you're really not describing a problem to like the fullest extent. You're not sharing with us like, oh, do you see how insane this is and how awful and hard your life is now? And really creating that problem for your audience, then I'm going to say, oh, I don't think they have the need step. So, like I said, right, 1 to 2 questions being like, have you felt like this? Have you felt like that? That's not going to count as your need fully, right? I want you to really dig deep into the problem and push on the pain point for your audience. Remember, there's a high chance for your specific topic you choose that there's going to be multiple audience members that would benefit from your product or your whatever you decide to do in different ways. And I want you to appeal to all of those, right? I want you to think of every single issue, literally like make a list. Okay, here are all the issues, all the problems that someone would face without my um without my satisfaction. So they would experience, oh, I'm thinking about like if you had a club or what all the things we're thinking about. A lack of knowledge, a lack of are you tired of seeming dumb in front of your friends? Are you tired of those sleepless nights studying but never really retaining anything? Are you upset of those lonely nights with no social interaction with people your own age, blah blah blah, right? Um 50% of college students say they don't get enough sun, right? Really dig deep into the need, what it looks like, what it sounds like, paint the picture, and really make your audience, even if they're like, I don't need this product. I don't need this satisfaction. Like, I don't have any issues. You better point them out. You better remember we're working on persuasion. You need to put on your salesperson hat and be like, okay, how can I convince them that they have an issue? Right? Boom. Next is your satisfaction being revealed too early in your attention or your need. So I've had a lot of people, and we'll touch on this after I go through common mistakes, but a lot of my students have been, okay, how, like, there's no way I can't reveal my satisfaction, or there's no way I can't reveal my satisfaction in my attention, because I asked y'all to, preview your main points. This is all about finessing it, being vague, teasing your audience. Because once you reveal that satisfaction, you're losing your persuasive power in the first two steps, right? You kind of want to think of this as like you're dangling the carrot of like, hey, audience member, hey, customer, hey, volunteer, petition member, person I want to buy my stuff, whatever it is. Like, hey, have you ever thought about this? Okay, cool, because here's my credibility. Here's kind of a little tease of what I'm going to talk about. And here's me previewing that. Have you ever thought about these problems in your life? Oh my gosh, you haven't? Well, can, uh, are you aware of how hard and difficult your life is because the my satisfaction is on your life? Well, let me satisfy those with my boom. And then you reveal wholly what you're trying to sell them, right? You first have to get them in in it with you, trusting you, and then you can get them into your satisfaction, right? Because once you convince someone they have a need, then you can sell them anything. And that's just the truth. Can y'all hear my recruitment training, my 4 months of recruitment training coming out? Um, but yes, be vague, tease your audience. And we will go over this and we'll have a workshop on Wednesday, so that will be the perfect time where we can kind of go over it because I could give y'all example, it's just really hard because it changes depending on each one of your topics, right? How you go about it, because a club and an event or a product are all very different ways you would go about that. So next is that your visualization not is not built out fully. And we kind of saw this in our impromptu, but I just want you to think about your visualization is not that hard. It's basically going to be two sentences and then you're done. Your life without your satisfaction and your life with your satisfaction. With this, though, I want you to be saying things like imagine this, picture this, and I want you to show us, don't tell us. Don't tell us like um you'll be stressed and life is hard. I want you to show us how life is stressful and life is hard. Like one of my students in my other class, she's doing like there's like a business she's always wanted to do where it's like a swim school that's like a Lifetime Fitness, but it's specifically for swimming, and they have training and competitions and but then they have places for like the adults that can take the kids there, like places for them to be. And it's like an all-in-one swim school, swim competition thing. Um, so, oh my gosh, where was I going with this? Oh, so one of the things about having it all in one, because in the Humble area, because that's my Atascocita Center class, um, they have different pools for different things, and these places are like an hour away from each other. So a lot of your life is spent driving, which is stressful. And then it's like on top of that, you don't spend as much time with your family. You're eating crappy food because you're just on the road. You don't have time to cook. So it's like that's stressful. But don't just say, life without this is full of stress and anxiety. Boom. No, show me. Say, life without my thing is you driving for hours. It's you not getting to sit home with your family. It's you eating crappy food because you don't have time to cook, right? Don't tell us it's stressful and exhausting. Show us that it's stressful and exhausting, right? Describe the feelings, the sounds, the taste, etc. And lastly, is having a concluding statement that is not strong. Hold on, let me drink some water. So I think the hardest part, and we've worked on this in our own speeches, right? It's the same as every other speech. Just make sure your last sentence signals to the audience that you are finished. And I want y'all to think about times you've done like you did the impromptu, you've done a speech, or even when you're watching someone else and they didn't clearly say, or they didn't clearly signal to us or have a strong concluding statement that they were done. And so we all kind of paused and we waited to kind of see, like, okay, are they done? And then we're like, oh, they're done. And then we clapped, right? Don't be that person. Work hard to be like, this is my this is my sentence, and everyone should know that I am done. This is your mic drop moment. And it avoids that. So yeah. And I think especially with the pitch speech, it's very different than our demo or informative and how our persuasive is going to be because you're talking to people one on one. And I think also there's the aspect of the action. And I think people kind of get awkward and don't really know how to phrase asking people to do something and then getting out of the speech, if that makes sense. Because, like, sometimes we feel uncomfortable asking people to sign a petition or give us their email or fill out a form, scan a QR code, give us money. It's kind of like awkward, so we kind of start rambling and go in circles, and so we kind of end with, so yeah, right? Because we don't want to look needy. So what I want you to do, get that out of you. You're confident. Whatever you're selling is not putting everyone out because everyone's getting credit for watching you. Everyone's doing the same thing. So be confident with, like, you're gonna do this. And I've put this on we're gonna talk about this on our rubric, but I think like a great, and you can steal this because we are doing this for the first time. But right, so it's like I need you to sign this volunteer sheet and give me your email and your name, and I will reach out in a month to give you volunteer opportunities. So sign this piece of paper and make our dream a reality. Boom. That signals to the audience that I am done, especially if you say it a certain way. And remember, like our gal in our MMS video talked about, is you start strong and stronger. So have that enthusiasm, put on your salesperson, infomercial, mattress mac pants on, and say, and make this dream a reality. Boom. We are in Shark Tank and you need to make it happen. You have pennies in the account. This is the last, this is your lifeline, right? Anyways, so make that concluding statement strong. So that was the last of our common mistakes. So what I do want to take us to is our template. So number one, I want to let y'all know that I did change this for my other class because we had, oh shoot. I do have this in Google Docs though, so we should be good. Give me a second, please go away. Hold on. Oops, there we go. Okay. So I changed this a little because some people in my last class kind of, and this isn't calling anyone out because I understand this is kind of where it gets difficult. So I changed up our intro a little. And yeah, and then I changed the order of this. So we'll go through that. So instead of topic introduced, I say vaguely topic introduced. Tease us, but don't tell us. For established credibility, especially for this speech, it's going to be more who are you? Like, why are you the one talking at this job fair, career fair, whatever it is? I'm the CEO. I'm a spokesperson. I'm the sales rep. I'm a fellow college student here at Lone Star. Who are you? Why are we listening to you? Then, previewing your main points. This could literally be first, I'll go into my need, then my satisfaction, then visualization. Now let's get into it, right? But for this speech, it's all about finesse, it's all about smooth, and you have so much to like play around with. Um, for this, it could literally be, let me think, because it'll change depending, but um, I'll go over some problems in our community have, how I'm going to, or my business is going to satisfy those problems and show you what life is going to look like or what the community will look like after implementing my solutions. Something like that, right? You can kind of play around with it. Um, and then your transitions are gonna kind of sound different too. So for instead of now that I introduced this, let's get into your need. You can, but think about in a pitch scenario, that just doesn't sound great. So maybe think about saying, um, what are some problems that you're facing? Or, um, let me think of a good one. Um, like now let's get into how this affects you. Boom, right? You're putting it on your audience member. It's like you're talking to them. And think about this is where we kind of touch on that audience relevance. So why is this important to you? Why should you care? That would be a great one. So let's discuss why you should even care. Here are all the problems you got, right? So now you're probably thinking, okay, how am I going to help? Well, let me show you with my satisfaction. And then with visualization, your transition can truly just be a signposting, which, boom, picture this, imagine this. This signposts to us that you went to the next one. And I think that'd be perfectly fine for your transition. And then, boom, into your action. Remember, review the need, satisfaction, visualization. You can literally say those, or again, use that finesse, kind of play around with it. And I do not like, I want you to have, like we talked about, say exactly what you want them to do, and then have that concluding statement. So finish strong, tell them this is what you need to do, sign this petition, whatever, strong concluding statement. Just so you guys know, your attention getter, your previewing the points need to be first and need to be last. But the middle part of this, play around with, right? Put it in whatever order you need to. Same with this. If you being like, and sign this paper today, or and whatever it is, if that sounds better in your concluding statement, do whatever you want, right? All I need to do is hear this and make sure it's effective. So I went over how I kind of changed our attention step, what transitions could look like, and how we can preview our points without actually saying our satisfaction too early. So we worked on that. Now let's go through our rubric. Oh shoot, hold on. I updated the pitch speech, so let's see. Oh, give me a second, give me a second. I know for a fact I changed it for this class, so let me show you on theirs. I literally just updated it because the time was wrong, so that is why I am changing it. There we go. Okay. So this will be exactly what you will see on yours. I just need to update it because I had to change things and they don't like it when you change it and it's linked to it already. But so our emphasized skills for this speech is organization. So obviously that is your Monroe's motivated sequence. Did you have attention, need, satisfaction, visualization, action in that order? If remember one of our common mistakes was not building out that need or that attention and need sounding like it was blending together, then you cannot get an impressive. Make sense? So make sure I hear every single one of those points. They are clear, they are separate, and they are in order, and you got an impressive. Next is persuasion. So were you just informing us, or were you giving us an action of like, how well did you persuade your audience using that logic, your ethos, your pathos, all of those things, building out that need? How great were you at doing that? Boom, impressive, effective, passable, miss the mark. I will say miss the mark is going to be like, there is no persuasion, right? You are informing us basically. You barely were like, you need to do this, or this is why it's important. Like you were kind of more unbiased and not really strong in your argument. So that would be where we're missing the mark. Impressive is we're hitting on all the ethos, pathos logos. That need is fully built out. You have built out those problems. You've touched on your audience members. Um, you've worked on that credibility, both in your verbals, your nonverbals, visually, everything. That would be impressive. We, so yes or no began with an intention getter. Monroe's motivated sequence was used, yes or no. Concluded with a call to action slash invitation. So you said, you need to sign this paper, you need to scan this QR code, yes or no. Body delivery, so this is your all the delivery, body language, yes, kind of, no. Effective vocal delivery, yes, kind of, no. Something I want to touch on with this is with your visual aid, do not rely on it. Same thing that I talked about with your PowerPoints. The reason why I didn't want you to use it for your informative speech is because I did not want you to just stand beside it and just kind of look at it and point while you're talking to me. This should be like, these pictures are behind you, the slideshow's behind you, but you are looking me straight in the eyeballs and you are talking. Occasionally you might say, like in this photo, you can see blah, 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 right? But again, that is your visual aid hurting you or helping you? And that will affect your delivery 100%. Vocal delivery, are you confident, enthusiastic? Are you loud? Are you clear? Did you deliver it extemporaneously and interactively? So, did it seem like you're just reading off a script? Did you just read off your note cards the whole time? Were you really engaging your audience or were you kind of just talking at them? So those are things that would affect your this aspect of the rubric. Did you deliver with confidence and professionalism? Was the display clean and aesthetically pleasing? Was the topic appropriate and recruitment focused? And then was it in time? Yes, over under for this one, it should be minus 20 points for that. This I want to change to, I need to change that to 5 minutes. But, boom. Okay, let's go back. I think that's all I wanted to touch on. Oh, what I did want to tell you about is I extended this to 4 minutes and 30 seconds. So you're welcome. I will be accepting gifts and treasures um, at the end of the semester. So that's all I have to say about some advice, some tips, um, any common mistakes over Monroe's motivated sequence. Just so you know, oh, actually, I'm about to get into that. So today we went over persuasive strategies, and then went over Monroe's motivated sequence and how to use it effectively and to avoid any mistakes. So assignments, quiz 10, um, then your pitch speech is due November 13th at 10:30 a.m. Your outline is due. Make sure you are there. I'll be there early. But remember, I'm gonna kind of rearrange the room, so be expecting that, or if you want to help me out, you totally can. But next class, we are gonna do an in-class challenge, which is our pitch speech workshop. Um, it's going to look a little different than our last one. It's going to be more interactive. You're going to work with a partner, and y'all are going to, I have a list of questions. I actually put the assignment already up if you want to kind of look through it. And if you're a planner and want to see what's going on, those are what you're going to do. But what I need from y'all so that you can get the most out of this workshop is I want you to today, tomorrow, if you've already gotten this done, perfect, amazing. I at least need you all to have that attention, need, and satisfaction done, or at least have some ideas and bullet points written down. Okay? It doesn't have to look pretty. It can be truly just like a brainstorming sheet, but you need something. And I ask these three because this is what really builds on what you are trying to say, what your angle is, um, and what exactly you are selling. Then your visualization and your action will come very easily after this. But I want you to have this ready to go. Remember, it doesn't have to look perfect, doesn't have to look pretty, just have some bullet points. But we'll be working on that, so everyone should be leaving feeling more solid, more confident. So, until Wednesday, make sure you get this stuff done. Email me. Oh, I forgot to remember that those out of class challenges, specifically scheduling a coaching session. It can be before, after class if you want to do something in person. Also, I will be, oh gosh, this is for the people who watch this on Monday. I will be on campus tomorrow, maybe like after 10, like maybe from like 10 to 10:30 if you want to get a quick one in there, or let me think how early I'll be here. Yeah, so I have a meeting probably 9:30 to 10, so maybe 10:15 to 10:45. If y'all are feeling cuckoo crazy, I'll be here in person then. Or before after class Wednesday. Um, but other than that, it could Zoom, email me, all the things. So I hope you had a great weekend. Hope you had a great Halloween. I'll be asking about that if y'all did anything exciting. Um, but yeah, okay. See y'all on Wednesday.